join us for another episode where real men have real conversations about leadership, relationships, morality, and dominion. Welcome to Mancode.
Hello, viewing audience, YouTube audience. I want to welcome you back to another Mancode conversation. As always, I'm Jonathan. Got my brothers here with me. We just want to welcome you again. We thank you for tuning in to the last conversation that we had of our fathers. That was really impactful for us, and we hope that grabbed you as well. But while we're kind of in I want to say the month of fatherhood and just kind of get into the summer, I just want to kind of keep on that theme a little bit with our conversation today. And a lot of people really haven't had a chance to really get introduced to these terms. When we throw out the term king, we throw out the term priest. So when you think of a king and a priest, you think of rulers and you think of someone that supports. So really, in my mind, a king really kind of looks at what we do with our man code. He leads. You have leadership, relationship, morality, and dominion, all in kingship. So we just want to delve into some things tonight and kind of just give you an introduction to how we think on things and just chime in on the comments, tying things out. We just want to hear from you, get some ideas. And while you're liking it, subscribing and sharing, definitely tune in your comments. So I just want to start this out. What do you gentlemen think is really the significance of training your boys or your sons early to be men rather than just letting that come naturally along? Why do we need to train them? Why is it just...
Well, obviously the Bible says, train up a child in the way they should go, when they will not depart. But that's a great question. If you don't train them, somebody's going to train them. Something's going to train them. And you can't leave a kid to himself, because also the Bible also says you leave a kid to himself, it will bring his parents to shame. So kids always need directions, guidance, and all those types of things. They need that steering. You leave an adult to himself without some type of direction, mentorship. No telling what might happen. People need that. They need the structure. They need parameters, protocols, all those types of things. You see, so it's imperative that they have that training. You can't get away from it. It's so crucial and it's so vital. And most of the time, you can tell, but not all the time, the child that has had some type of structure, some type of balance and so forth, because you can see it in the, in the behavior and so forth. Not all the time, but most of the time. So yeah, it's crucial that they have that type of direction and that good guidance.
Yeah, and what I would add to what Pastor Malcolm said is just taking a different take a little bit is that every person is brought into the world with purpose and destiny. And so that training is important in order to help guide and mold and cultivate that gift and that talent that comes into the world, to point them in the direction that they should go, expose them to opportunities to help to build and cultivate them, to make them better, make them stronger, make them faster. I've seen little videos where there's like a 9 or 8 year old little kid who was a boxer. The boy got hands, but when you see him sparring with his father basically as a little child exposed him to that craft of boxing. And at the age that he is, he's been cultivated, he's been reared up, and that skill set now he can take into his life. He could use it to make a better life for himself, or he could put it aside, but it's now something that is ingrained into him. So I think in training a child up also helps to cultivate what God has put into them.
Yeah, I agree with everything you all are saying, man. And like the foundations of manhood start when you're a boy, right? Like I equate it to education, right? So like you don't come out the gate knowing chemistry right away. Like you don't know college level chemistry at first grade, but you start learning those basic principles about chemistry at an early age to prepare you. So when you do get to the college level of chemistry, it's like those basic things you don't have to go over again because you've already learned them and applied them over the course of first grade all the way up through your freshman year in college. And like manhood is the same, right? I learned how to say yes sir, no sir, you know, how to look a man in the eyes at a young age, right? And so it's like that's something that's going to stick with me forever. So now if I'm in job interviews or I'm communicating with somebody, I'm subconsciously doing something that I learned at 5 years old, just because, like, you know, my father, a lot of deacons in the church, a lot of older men that I respect a lot taught me those things at such a young age. So it's like that stuff stays with you and carries with you through each phase of life. So the preparation begins almost right out the womb for becoming a man.
I would also concur on what I've heard from the brothers here. Without the structure or without the training, you have no structure. And therefore you be prey to any of the world's schemes, you know, the worldly schemes that's out there. And it's so many right now. So I say it's so important for a young mind to be educated and led in a direction it should go. So it's not leading into corruption, because without guidance, we all fall down. And guess who's out there seeking to and fro to see who he can devour?
Good, that's good. You know, when y'all were talking, a couple of images popped in my head because y'all all on point. You know, kids are mirrors and sponges. So when you think of like a tree, when you first plant a young tree into the ground, you have to plant stakes around that so it'll grow up straight, so it won't lean, get off balance, so to get the right nutrition. And that's the same with kids. They have to have structure, guidelines, and boundaries because they're mirroring what you are in your world, in your life. So yeah, y'all right on with that one. But let's I want to before I continue on, I just for the viewers, I just want to throw out there basically to us and just to me generally, when we use the term king, we look at all men actually really have a role as a king, because you're meant to dominate, you're meant to rule in some form or fashion. It's not always associating that with a nation, a country, or a large group. You are the king of your home. You are the, like they say, the king of the castle. So when you look at that, you have dominion in that area. You exercise rule, authority, and guidance. So I just wanted to clear that up before I went on. But raising your son to be a king kind of sounds like a tall order. But really, what does that take from us as fathers?
I think one, it actually it asks of us as fathers to, number one, know who we are, because we can only instill in a young man what we believe that we are ourselves. As you just mentioned before, kids are looking at us and modeling after us, and so what they see of us is what they would mirror, what they want to become, or what they identify as being a norm. Or, you know, so if I see my dad, you know, flirting with women, or if I see my dad, you know, being abusive or screaming and yelling at my mom's, then I take that on as that's okay. And then I will emulate that. I will take that on as a skilled trait of communicating, you know, with the opposite sex. Or if I see that my father was an alcoholic, or I'm talking like one right now, but if my father was an alcoholic, I might think that some of these things, you know, might be a norm. So I'm saying the first thing is that we must, as men or as fathers, know who we are in order for us to emulate that to our children.
I think that's well said. We definitely have to know who we are, because how can you impart something to someone if it doesn't come from you? But I think that's a great question, because men do have a great responsibility, and a lot of men, like you say, that they don't know how to really walk in that authority, that dominion, even though they say, yeah, we're supposed to be the home, the king of our castle, and all that type of stuff. But in all actuality and reality, there's not a whole lot of men all the time that's always walking in that. You know what I'm saying? It sounds good in theory, and it's supposed to be that way, but you'd be surprised how many men shrink back from that role, how many women, I want to say, for lack of a better word, they don't always submit to the authority of the man, whether they feel that man is not walking in that particular role. But there's a lot of dynamics there. But yeah, so I think what I would encourage a person to do, if they don't really understand what a king is, really understand what a king is, and the authority that comes with it, and the responsibility, because, you know, the word of a king has power, it has authority, and so forth. And, you know, when you speak, people are supposed to, you know, move in certain directions, because a man's word and a man's voice, we talked about that, I think, in a couple of different sessions a few weeks ago, or however, how a man's voice can shift the direction of a whole thing. And when the king speaks, you don't have to scream, you don't have to holler, you don't have to do all that. You just say what you say, and you mean what you say, and then it sets things into action. So yeah, I would just encourage all men really to be mindful that you have to be a man of integrity, man of character, man of honor, and all those types of things. And just because you are a male species, it doesn't, you just don't. People are not going to see you just be, like that all the time, just because you're a man. You have to demonstrate that. They have to see it sometime. The old saying is, you can show me better than I can tell you, that type of thing. So they want to see that. If I say I'm a king and you're acting like something else, it's not lining up, and you can lose your kingship real quick.
Yeah, well, I feel that kids have an image of what a king should be, based on school literature and things of that nature, and what they want to see that kingship to be in their home. The books that they've read, the king is in order, they're ruling, and they're kind of like the king of the hill, so to speak. So they want to see that same emulation take place at home, and without that, they're kind of lost because they don't see that impact that they should receive. They don't have that guidance, nor do they have that focus on what they can become. If they see the kingship at home, they have a mindset, hey, my dad's a king. What kid don't want to be like their dad? I want to be like my dad. He's carrying that crown, so I want to be a king as well.
Yeah, like for me, when I hear this, man, I think about like inheritance and legacy, right? So like in order to become a king, you at some point had to study under somebody who was worthy at being in that position. And so like I'm not a father yet, I plan on becoming a father in the future. But when I think about that, I kind of ask myself like, Austin, like what are you going to do to make sure that like Elder Fant said, my son or my daughter, in this instance, my son looks at me and says, like, I want to be like my dad. Like, am I establishing a culture within my family that my son wants to continue? Like, I don't want, alcoholism to be a thing that my son sees. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want, womanizing to be a thing to see. And my son says, I don't want to do that. But like you all said, like integrity, morality, spirituality, all of those things, like I want my son to be able to see that. So when he steps into the position of becoming a father, whether it's naturally or like a father in the church to young men who look up to him or whatever, I want his example to be able to, I want him to be able to say, my father was an example of what I need to do to help raise up, other kings in society eventually.
Nice, nice. And I love this commentary. I would say basically be one yourself, be a king, and y'all hit that, be a king yourself. Because one thing, when I think about this, you have to look at the emulation factor and what you're imparting, what you're instilling, and you want them to see a leader, and leaders know how to be led. So I would just encourage fathers, just learn how to be led by God. That'll give you probably the most wisdom and instruction on raising your kid and honing their talents and really seeing the dynamics that they have that you may not even know were there. So I would just encourage that. Be a king yourself, be a leader. Know you're being watched, know you're being emulated. And also, while you're being watched, while you're being emulated, let them see the love that you show others. Let them see compassion in you. Let them see qualities in you that is like, wow, my dad can get on somebody's butt, but he a really nice dude. Let them see that in you. So that's something that they want to grow into. So we digging this one tonight. But let's kind of shift this a little bit. As men, fathers, and role models, whatever position you're in, let's say if you are a father or if you are a baby daddy, what should our sons and young men see from us in relation to their mothers, as far as that relationship? What should they see from us, first and foremost, or just all through? Together, not together, don't matter.
I guess like for me, like in the context of marriage, right? Because I am married. Like I think about how the Bible says, like, love your wife like Christ loved the church. Like I think that's the thing that my son should see. Like, what am I willing to sacrifice to make sure that my wife is she feels safe, she feels protected, she feels loved, you know, she feels all of these things. And also, like, how are you taking care of yourself so you're not sacrificing, I guess, like your own happiness and your own well-being? It's like you should be able to have that too while transferring that down to your family. And so it's like, you know, you talk about like order of priority, like it's God, father, wife, children. Like that's what I think should be modeled for our young men, whether they are sons or mentees, in terms of how to treat a woman.
I would just have a few short things to say. You know, having that spiritual leadership, having the values and the ability to show um, um, being a provider and also a protector. You know, I believe those are some important qualities, three important qualities that a male should not grow up without. You know, that those are the must-dos. That's my piece I would like to add.
Now, I like this question, Brother Jonathan. You put a good one here, and the reason I like it so much is because, like I say, it's very important. I hear people say all the time about how they, you know, this is my children's mother, so I have to love them. You know what I'm saying? I hear that all the time. And you know, they may not be together and so forth, but sometimes I kind of wrestle with that. I mean, you want to respect them and treat them right, but is it just because they're your mother? And I'm just trying to get some understanding with that. But let me move on. I don't want to stay on that too long. But I'm looking at this from a couple different perspectives. I'm going to bring my personal self in here. I'm married, but I have let me see. I got a couple number of kids. I got 4 kids.
You can take your shoes off if you need to.
That's 4 kids. I got 4 kids, but I've never been married to any of their mothers. You see what I'm saying? So, except for my stepdaughter, which is just like my regular daughter. But point being is, you know, and I've always had good relationships, but you know, the dynamic there is sometimes, you know, I think first of all you have to show them respect. You know what I'm saying? Never do anything that's, you know, disrespectful. You want to have a mutual respect relationship where, you know, you guys respect one another. But it's a little bit different because sometimes when you're not married, you're not always there. There's so many variables that come into place. You can be married, you can be divorced. And I'm saying, for example, if you get divorced and so forth, let's say, for example, you should try to always have the relation with the mother where, you know, the kids would always see you guys amicable. You're not fighting, that type of thing. And then let's say, for example, if you've never married the mother, you know, sometimes things happen. In my particular case, you know, I mean, one of the relationships wasn't, you know, a real great, you know, it wasn't like we were that it was just things that happen type of relationship, you know what I'm saying? And so therefore the relationship was a little bit different, never disrespect or that type of thing. But you know, I'm sure the child may have felt a certain way because he probably could sense, hey, the relationship is not as close in my situation as maybe some of the others. So there's a very difficult balance. And you know, you know, we never had any what we call baby mama drama. But the thing there is I always tried to show respect and so forth. But yeah, it can be interesting, man. You know, I had to balance 3 different situations and that type of thing, and it can get challenging, but my goal was always try to respect one another. And you know, with God's help and so forth, I think it turned out well. But yeah, I would always say yeah, just treat the mother with respect the best that you can. And you know, and the kids hopefully will know that you meant well by their mother.
So what I'll add to that is I think also it's important that the children see the father stand up for himself. Right. Not in the sense where it's, you know, argumentative or dogmatic, but that he actually has a stance, that he actually has a position in conversations or things that are happening with inside of the home. Our kids are inundated with, Pastor talks all the time about like the Barney Fife or the dumb buffoonish type of father figure that they see on these little sitcoms. I think it's important that they see a strong figure, one who has a voice and an opinion on the direction of their life and the things that happen within it. Because if you're not that, then they think that stuff they see on television is a reality. But in actuality, we know it's a fallacy. So I think, you know, having a voice, having a position, and letting your kids know where you stand. I think taking a position where, as we stated before, that whole rearing piece, I think it's important that you try to cultivate relationships with your children individually, and that you make it a point to try to explain the whys. I grew up from a generation of because I said so, but because I said so has only caused me to go out and find out the why. And so, you know, in my home, I try to explain and tell my kids, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. And I try to keep it regulated on their age and what they're able to. And then sometimes like, you're not ready to have that conversation right now. But the reality of it simply still is that if we aren't the voices that are speaking into the lives of our children, somebody else's voice will. So I just think we should stand up, be a presence, a voice, have a position in the relationship. That whole go ask your mama, you know, kind of thing. You should actually have an opinion, and in that conversation, it shouldn't always be deflecting or deferring it to the mother, because you're telling the kids in that action that you don't have any authority, you don't have any power.
Right.
You know, that's so good. That's so good. No, I'm sorry. That's so good because, like you say, and so and the woman will take that, and the child, the children will look at you like you're weak and so forth, and they say, "Man, Dad, can you speak up for yourself?" And man, I'm feeling that, Danya. You nailing that one, man. So, but that's never been my story. I may have been, you know, probably too much the other way because, like I say, you know, I'm gonna discuss with the individual behind the scenes, not in front of the children. But hey, you know, at the end of the day, you know. Unless I think it makes more sense than what I'm coming with, you know, we're going to have to, you know, I'm leaning more toward my direction in most cases, but I try to, you know, work with people in that direction. You know what I'm
saying? We could do a whole conversation on go ask your mom, but we're going to leave that one alone.
Go ask your mama. That's a good title for one.
I ain't going to say I'd be guilty of that myself, but that was more just let myself off the hook. But yeah, lazy to see. There we go. But when I think of this, there's so much that comes into my mind, but I have to first throw out respect and love. Whether y'all together, I'm gonna say this on 2 points. If you're not together, they should see respect from you. They should see you actually being cordial. Even if y'all not getting along, you should fake it till you make it. Because that's one thing, actions actually come before the heart sometimes. So if you actually do the act of being nice, eventually you'll just be nice and you won't mind being nice. You may not be trying to get with her, but you're looking at the example you're setting for your children. So if he sees you talking to her rough, y'all arguing, no conflict resolution, he's thinking that's the pattern for how relationships are going to turn out. So even if he says, oh, I can't stand that, you know, it gets on my nerves, they always arguing and fighting, but guess what? Because there was never any healing, he's going to grow up doing the same thing with the girlfriend or the wife that he gets. And then that's just going to carry that cycle through. So you always have to think of your example in that. And if you marry, definitely your son should see you doting on your wife. Love her and let it be seen. Give him a kiss. The kid's gonna say his girl's, I don't want to see that. Forget all that. You're showing him how to be a husband, how to love, how to nurture, how to guard that relationship, and how to guide it along. So that's just my little take on that. But yeah, y'all throw out some good ones here. But I'm gonna go a little bit different direction on this, because let's take dads out of the picture. Say dad's not around. How could a single mom raise her son to think like a king? Now, sometimes, you know, a lot of men say, yeah, a woman can't raise a man. That's true. But they can impart things in them. So what can she do to develop that kingly thinking, that leader, that man?
I would like to try to start out on this one, if I could. What I would like to see or would like to share is that if the mom could give the child that opportunity to demonstrate and exhibit, you know, that type of kingship behavior, you know, based at their level, you know, of course, it's not going to be, you know, as an adult, but you got to give them a practice. And the more they run that practice in it, whether it's leadership, you know, trying to protect, or, you know, just use any other father qualities, they're going to improve on that skill. It's just like when young animals learn how to hunt. They may not get to kill the first time out, but as they keep on going out with their parents and reflecting back, oh, mom taught me this or dad taught me this, I need to respond in this way. That's when they're going to improve and show that skill and hone in on that practice and then become the king that they want to be.
Yeah, I would say like for whatever reason the father is not in that son's life, be mindful of how you talk about his father in front of him. You know, don't say, oh, he's not this, he's not that, he never comes around. And if your son start asking questions, just try to answer them in the most tactful way possible. Because you don't want your son to have any resentment towards his father, because I feel like in that scenario in the future, it could eliminate any reconciliation that can be made there, right? If you just badmouth him your son's whole childhood and he's like, my dad is a horrible dude, I don't never want to meet him because he left my mom hanging, he did this, he did that. So be mindful of how you talk about his father. I would say this another thing is support your son in his decision making, right? Like as a man, we have to be able to make decisions for ourselves, and you know, give your son those opportunities to make those decisions. And even if you don't agree with it, you know, still guide him, watch him, make sure he's okay, but support him in his decision making. Because one thing that I think about is on college selection day. You see a lot of young men, more specifically young black men, right, who make a decision to go to Alabama versus a Florida State. And you see the mom, she's upset. You know, I told you to go to Florida State. I told you not to. And like looking at that, watching it is so cringeworthy and it's so embarrassing to watch. And like you may not agree with your son going to Alabama versus Florida State, but you know, still support him in his decision making. Make sure that you have as many eyes on him at Alabama as you can. You know, that the coaches have his best interest at heart, that he's putting himself in positions to not make mistakes, and not just like a college football reference, but just like in life in general. Like let him make his decisions and make sure that you support him and help guide him through those decisions so he doesn't stray too far off the path of becoming a king.
Yeah, what I would add to that would be, I know sometimes the language is that a woman can't raise a son, you know, that it takes a man to raise a man. And I think both male and female both have a role to play in the cultivation of a man. And I believe that that nurture aspect of things is really critical because it's that foundational building blocks that actually helps cultivate relationship, emotion, and engagement in social dynamics. It is a father's role to galvanize that and to build strength and to build skill and integrity, and encourage. You know what I'm saying? And so they both work hand in hand. That's why when you know you got guys like, oh, you're a mama's boy, because he hasn't developed that skill set of being an aggressor, of being somebody who will walk towards or confront a situation. He basically will back away from a situation. And that could come even from having a father that wasn't cultivated the same way. So I don't want to say that's just is that, but you know, a mama's boy can raise a mama's boy. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? My point basically being is that you know, when a absentee father is not there, there's still attributes that a mother has in order to help cultivate that child. She has to know though that she is part of a whole, that she needs to connect to an uncle or her father or someone to help cultivate that other aspect of it, that she's not all inclusive. And that's where I think sometimes that relationship gets off, when she tries to be both the masculine and the feminine in the child's life.
Wow, you guys are giving me something to think about here. That's good. Well, I'm from the mindset, you know, that a woman can do a good job, but I'm just going to go with I don't think a woman can raise a man, because first of all, a boy to be a man, because they don't have that DNA. They can help, they can do the best they can, but you know, and he can turn out fine. And I'm not trying to be so dogmatic that they won't do a good job with it, but it may sound like it. But my point is, I would encourage a woman to get a strong male figure that's positive, some mentoring, some mentorship type thing, get them hooked up with someone that they can see, maybe an uncle that's a good uncle, those types of things, and let them see that. But as Austin has said earlier, I would really speak words of affirmation, talk to my son, let him know that, hey, what a man is, how a man's supposed to act. But she can show him how a man's supposed to treat a lady and things of that sort. So there are some things she can do, but there's some things that just, you know, I mean, because I would have trouble teaching my daughter how to be a lady. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is I can teach her some things, I think, to, and how I could definitely teach her how to pick a good man, but I couldn't teach her how to be a woman per se, because I don't think I have all that, or, maybe I'm being too hard on myself, but for me, I think it might be challenging. But I would just say, yeah, put that good role model in front of them, and give them principles and so forth. You can also show them pictures of, or some examples of what a man is and what a man is not, so they can see it. Talk to them about that type of thing. And I like Austin's point where he said that sometimes the mother doesn't let the child make its own decisions. I know a lot of times when recruiters will come to the home too about the man not having the voice, a lot of times they'll say, hey, if we win the mother, we can get the child. You see what I'm saying? So I would like to see that shift too, where if I was in the home and a recruiter was coming to recruit my child, boy or girl, hey, you're going to talk to me. You're going to talk to all of us, but at the end of the day, you're not going to bypass me trying to win the mother. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. So there's a lot of different dynamics that go in. I know I'm talking a lot, but yeah, so I'm not saying a woman can't do a good job, but I've seen too many instances where it's a different spirit. It's a different spirit, and yeah, they can do a good job. Not trying to dismiss them totally, but yeah. I'm gonna leave it like that, man. I don't know where it's gonna go from here, but I'm gonna leave it like that.